Good morning, friends. Today we are going to discuss standards. We know standards are set of rules and regulations. Standards are essential for producing good documentation that provide guidelines on what content to be included, what content not to be included, the writing style and the format of documents, etc. While we are following these standards that make easier to develop and to maintain the documentation in a professional standards. Let us see in detail what is meant by standards and what are the standard of different type of or different standards of documentation, and what are the good qualities or attributes of a good documentation. From this slide, it is very easy to understand the importance of standards while we are preparing our documentation. A good or competent technical documentation is written and structured within the framework of a specific standards. These standard or documentation standards provide guidelines, as we have discussed. It's a guidelines for producing documents as well as for their reproduction or delivery to the users. This illustration give an insight to how standards are an essential for starting point for creating a technical documentations and are applied to the design of documents and their later development to the end user and production. Standard should be in the first place helps that determine what content to be or what document should provide and what terminology should be used, how documentation should be presented and laid out. All these things that standard give an insight to prepare a good technical documentation. The standards that apply to documentations will vary depending upon the industry, organization and even the particular objective. If it is technical documentation, the standard may be differ, etc. We are discussed in our previous lessons. The whole idea of standards is to ensure consistency and quality. These slides itself gives a clear idea about the importance of standards or etc. Standard that contribute. It may be industrial internal standards or industry standards or delivery standards. Then we have designs. Designs may be media type or format or layout or structure or information architect, document templates. We have style or guidelines or feedback or mechanism. All these things that contribute to the design of our standards. Then again, this design consists of information that we have to gather. Informations may be gathered from interviews, checklists and templates, workshops and other uses, other means of. So these internal or industry delivery standards that contribute the design standards. Design standards may be we have our own standards in terms of media or template or format or structure or any other. And for designing our report, we have to collect a different type of informations. It may be by using interviews or structured questionnaire or checklist or templates or etc. This contribute to the production of our or preparation of our documents. That production have some standards. Writing standards may be there, content creation standard may be there, technical review may be there, editorial stages may be there, testing evaluation etc. are contribute to the production standards. And we have the last one, that is to end user concerned standards, that is signing off or sign off standards that for publishing or end user and how digital deployment or both. These contribute. This chart that itself contribute how standards are important for different stages of our documentation. Now we move to the standard of documentations. We have 4 standards A number of standards we have as a part of our syllabi. We are focusing on four important standards of our standard of our documentations. First one, that is clarity. The next one, use simple languages. Then avoid technical jargons, and the last one, indexing. From these, it is very clear while we are preparing a document or while we are preparing a documentation, we have to follow these standards. Then our documentation may be good standards. Let us see in detail. First one, clarity. Or a good technical document, whether it is technical or not, good technical documentations clearly conveys that subject matter without errors or ambiguity or confusion, and by being easily and quickly comprehended or it meets the demand of the technical readers. From this, it is very clear that while we are reading the document, it should be understood by the end user or the beneficiary. There is a simple logic behind this clarity. It should be convey the message to the end user or beneficiary. The next one, simple language. Well, specialist or technical terms are necessary, even though plain English make technical writing easier to read and understand, etc. Unexplained or overused technical jargons is a common fault of technical writing. While we are preparing documentations, use of these technical words that make these documentations is more and more complicated. So we have to follow a standard, that is use of single language. Anyone or beneficiary can understand the message of the documentation very easily. The next one, that is avoid technical jargons. It is just extension of second standards that we have discussed. Many technical words we have when we are preparing our documentation. Some experts use different standard technical words, but thing is that the end result is a big zero. No one can understand what the writer intended to communicate. So in order to avoid these technical complexes, we have to use simple languages and avoid technical jargons. Some terms are needed, but while we are using jargons that or jargons can mask meaning or that hide the meaning and make technical writing dense with nouns. Much of the jargon used in this way is picked up in the first place from the properly written documents. Then another one that is a very important one, that is indexing. A well-planned and written technical reference will have a chunks of information. The informations will be well mapped and indexed to allow users to find a particular fact, and fact with the relationship will be cross-referenced from one to the other. Up-to-date and complete technical documentations can save hours of later questioning or chunk off. That means when we are preparing our document, it should be indexed properly. Anyone can search any messages from the documents with a zero time, within a zero span of time. That is the main know-how about the indexing. That means anyone can search and find any information included in our documentation. That is called proper indexing. That's all about the different standards of documentation. The last one, that is attributes of good documentation. That means well structured or well planned document contain some of the elements. Let us see what are these elements or qualities of good documentation in brief. First one, that is content listing. That means the content of the report, or it may be technical report or whatever may be, content of the report indicate the user at a glance the overall content and the structure of the document. In a text document, this could be a table of content. I will give an example for that. When we have different textbooks. Suppose we are opened our textbook. The first page that itself shows the syllabus of our module, and there is a content page. That content page itself clear an idea about the textbooks and content of the textbook, chapter schemes, page numbers, etc., etc. This is content listing. The next one, standard purposes. That means if the purpose of the items is provided, a user can quickly start accessing what they need. That is stated purposes. We have to state our purposes. Then it is very easy to start or access the end user. The next one, navigation tool or searching tool. A well-developed system of navigation include the features such as coloring, coding, table of content, dividers, drop-down menus, and icons and indexes. All these things. It's very easy. The next one, that is accuracy. It should contain factual and correct information. It's a very good common quality of a good document. The next one, accessibility. It is also very common. In structure, it should include heading, subheadings, index, tables of content, etc. Language used is also very simple and understandable. Then clarity, that we are discussed in our previous slides. Then the next one, that is complete and comprehensive. That means it should be complete. All aspects of the aims have been addressed in our documentation. It should be comprehensive and complete in all sense. The last one, that is consistent. Consistent means it should be in the manner of style, format, and representation, including in the use of terms and spellings, etc. In all respect, documentation should be consistent. So these are the important qualities, very important qualities that we have to consider while we are preparing our documentation. By these words, let us conclude today's video here. That's all about our first module. Then we have 4 modules. Tomorrow onwards, we will start our second modules. If you have any doubts regarding whatever we are discussed in our different lessons in our first module, have you any queries related to the subject matter, you can ask any doubts through WhatsApp or Google Classroom or any other media you want. Thank you to all.